Thank you so much for joining me today. And right at the beginning, I'm going to ask you to forgive my voice. I'm sorry, I have allergies. And so that's just how I sound. I know it's tougher on you than it is on me, but I will recover from this once allergy season's over. By the way, I love our headline today. Israel's in the news again. I just can't believe that day after day, little teeny Israel, I mean a speck on the map, you can hardly find it when you look on a globe. And every day it's in the news. It reminds me of a passage in Zechariah. Listen to this. The governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts, their God. Yeah, people, nations, individuals continue bash Israel. And the Bible said that would take place. A little bit later it says this, it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. God is a plan. And in that plan, we're watching it unfold before us. Today, I want to show you a couple news stories, a couple videos, some articles. I want to try to tie Israel into some overall news of the whole world. Because remember, our whole plan is to take the Bible, compare it to what's taking place in the world, and find out where are we. I think we're on the brink of Jesus coming. I think we're at the very end of the church age. And so I'm excited to bring you a recap of the news. And then at the end of the program today, I want to talk to you about a personal plan that I have, and I hope you'll be willing to pray for me as this takes place. Well, the first clip I want to show you is a scene that I've shown many times. This is a fresh one. This was just filmed the other day in Israel. But I'm sure now you recognize that that's what's called the Western Wall. It's not the Wailing Wall. I've mentioned before that the Wailing Wall is where you come to mourn, but it's the Western Wall of the Temple Plaza. It's a place of great sentiment to the Jewish people, to the nation of Israel. And as you know, we just had Flag Day in Jerusalem. It's almost like our Memorial Day. We remember the heroes that have fallen. We celebrate the fact that Israel is now back in the land. Remember, even when they were in Babylon, captive and taken into Babylon for their sin, they disobeyed God, and God said, "I'm going to remove you." So all the years of sin, God made them pay for it, but He brought them back. And when they were in Babylon, they cried and said, "We missed so much the temple." But when they came back, often they couldn't go all the way to the Temple Mount, to the top. So they would pray there at the base of it. The Flag Day, celebrated by Israel, almost mocked by the rest of the world, but celebrated by Israel. I showed you the huge flag that they unfurled. It was great. It was a wonderful scene. Today I want to show you, look at the mob that's there and listen to the history lesson that you'll see. Here we are. You see what I mean? Such a special day, such a special remembrance. That's why I compare it to our Memorial Day. Such a special day. But all is not well. I'm going to show you another clip from the Flag Day, the Jerusalem Day. I call it the Flag Day, but it's really officially the Jerusalem Day. And this short video clip is at a very famous place. It's called the Damascus Gate. I walk over it 15 times every time I go to Israel. There's a historical site right below there. It's actually a gate that would be the gate that Jesus would have entered. But this is one of the main gates. It's the north gate of the city. As you continue down the path, you actually go to Golgotha, the place where Jesus was crucified. Watch the little skirmish here. So why would I show you that conflict? Because I want you to understand that Israel, back in their land, celebrating the fact that the land that God gave to them all the way back in the book of Joshua, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, even when they claim it, they weren't up on the Temple Mount. No, they were at the Western Wall. They were at a place of prayer. It was a quiet, peaceful demonstration until others came and said, wow, Jerusalem is not yours. And they were challenged. Israel back in the news. But the challenge wasn't just on Jerusalem Day, on Flag Day. Here's another story. Look at this. It's an incredible story because it talks about $1 billion of damage that they've caused to the Houthis. How do the Houthis have $1 billion of extra funds to continue to resurge and to re-aim and to continue firing missiles? Guess what? Even with $1 billion of damage, they are still sending missiles to Israel. Do you see the hatred? Oh yeah, we watch the hatred in the news in our own country. We watched in America a couple shot at a museum about Israel in our nation's capital. We see the damage that they do to anything they can. $1 billion, that's a lot of money. Where did they get the money? Let me tell you, the Houthis don't have $1 billion unless it comes from outside sources like Iran, China, and Russia. And that's exactly who's funding them. So what a testimony this is that we're living in the last days. Or how about this picture? Because this picture talks about the fact that, look, there's revenge coming. When you see that missiles are continuing to be fired, do you blame Israel for saying, you know what, sooner or later we got to take out the source? And everyone agrees that the source has to be Iran and Turkey and Russia, the very nations that God says are come against Israel. And they're coming. They continue to send the missiles that way. My friend, do you understand? Israel's in the news again. The Bible said that they are going to be in the news, especially in the last days. And we're watching this fulfilled before our very eyes. Well, not only that story, but take a look at this one. Here's a photo. And this photo is actually in Syria. And what's interesting is that Syria, remember, Assad fell, retreated to Russia. Turkey's talking about coming in. Other nations talking about coming in, even Iran. Russia went to Libya. But what's interesting is now, here's a Catholic bishop, and he's saying, okay, we want to establish an American presence here. Wow. I worry what they're trying to do. Because you see, the Bible says that Syria, Damascus, is going to be destroyed. Are we setting ourselves up to be in a situation where we're in a no-win war? I think we are. Look, I'm all for preserving Israel because there's a government in Israel that can back up what they say. There's a government there that the people have voted for. But in Syria, it's one gangster after another. There's going to be no order there. There's going to be no real permanent ceasefire. It's going to be filled with one criminal after another. But here we are trying to prop up another place. I'm just warning you because the Bible said that Damascus will be destroyed. I actually have another picture that I thought about putting in where they're hoisting an American flag. You talk about a lightning rod. There we're hoisting an American flag almost like it's in competition to the one of Turkey, to the one of the new czar of Syria. Really, sometimes we need to use a little better sense. Why do we pick a fight for something? There's not one person who says we should claim Syria. I hope we don't do it. Yeah. I don't mind us having an embassy there. I don't mind us servicing our citizens that are there. But right now it's a vacuum. And it's one destruction after another. Why? Because there's still pockets of munitions and missiles that are being destroyed, some by Israel and even some by Russia, because Russia doesn't want people to find out how much they had in terms of not only missiles, but also in terms of chemical weapons. Yeah, it's a very risky place. I would say that may be one of the most risky places in all the world. Well, let's go back to Israel, because here's an incredible video. It'll be Mr. Netanyahu. You'll have subtitles. He'll do it in Hebrew. It's not a very long clip, but it's about the war that's between good and evil. You know what? I think the Bible talks about the fact that in the last days there's going to be wars between good and evil. Matter of fact, if you're familiar with Israel and if you're familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls, it talked about the children of light versus the children of darkness. And when you go to Israel and you go to the museum, you find that there's quite a symbolic symbol there. A big white wall, the sons of light. A big dark architectural structure, the sons of darkness. Because all the way back in the scrolls in Qumran, that story was announced. Now, some of those stories are not inspired, but the Bible is inspired, and it talks about in the end time there's going to be a battle between good and bad. And so Netanyahu addresses his people on this Memorial Day, or Jerusalem Day, about the war between evil and good. Listen to what he says.
זוהי מלחמת הטוב ברע. ראשית, מלחמה נחושה שמתנהלת בשדה הקרב, היא מתנהלת מול חיות אדם, מול מפלצות שתקפו אותנו באכזריות מחרידה לפני 20 חודשים, ואנחנו ננצח אותם ונחריט אותם. הם לא יישארו.
Wow, fiery speech. And I don't blame him. You want to know why? In a minute, I'm going to show you a picture of the United Nations, what they have a desire for. But the people of Israel are getting tired of trying to make a ceasefire and to have no ceasefire last at all. Matter of fact, let me tell you this. He called them human animals. That's what they are. They slaughtered a couple minding their own business in America. They're slaughtering people in other countries as well. Switzerland is almost gone. Sweden is almost gone. Germany is almost gone. France is almost gone. They're barbarians. They take nothing serious to the sanctity of life. And they will continue to kill the Jewish people. I listened to a proposal yesterday. And they said, let's try to negotiate a ceasefire with them. And this ceasefire, we want it to be for 50 days. That's enough to reload Hamas. That's enough to have the Houthis back in the firing of missiles again. We just saw the effect of that. And what they'll do is, let's ask them to free 10 hostages. 10 hostages? They've had them for 2 years. We don't know if they're dead or alive. They should release all the hostages. And at this point, Israel is at the breaking point. Where they say, why are we continuing to give in? No. It's time for us to take a stand. And so he says, yeah, we're going to embark on a war that may wipe them all out. But we have to. Because they're not negotiating in good faith. God bless him. You know what? The Bible says that the world's going to turn against Israel. All, including America. I wonder if we're not seeing the beginning of this. Even those who are patient with Israel saying, okay, what if Israel did make a strike and took out a major thing in Iran? I have a reason for building up to this, and you'll see why in just a minute. Because I want you to see that the people of Israel say we've got to have some end to this war. It's not coming by these ceasefires in which they continue to fire hundreds of missiles. Thankfully, many of them are intercepted by the Iron Dome. I can't blame them. Israel in the news again? Absolutely. The Bible says that's a story of the end time. Well, here's an article, and this is one of the reasons why Netanyahu gave the speech he did. Because the United Nations is now saying, hey, we're doing a prep meeting for a June two-state solution conference. Look, 600 days. 600 days of killing. 600 days of war. 600 days of hostages not being returned. Tortured hostages when they are returned. 600 days. And what you can say is the two-state solution does not work. And now the United Nations are going to say, okay, this is what we want to do. It's either this or nothing. Who are they believing? Well, let me show you another video clip. The state of Palestine. Watch what they are proposing.
But I can assure you, we are rooted in Palestine more than the olive trees, the Roman ones, rooted in Palestine. We will never go away. We will not wither away. We are staying in our homeland, and we will attain our inalienable rights, hopefully sooner than later.
He calls it the homeland. It's not their home. I'm perfectly willing to have them go to their homeland. But a two-state solution doesn't help. You see, that's the problem. They've been uprooted. No one wants them. Egypt doesn't want them. Nobody wants them. Saudi Arabia doesn't want them. Jordan doesn't want them. But yet the United Nations says, let's have a two-state solution. And they say, we're going to dig in. We're never going to surrender. Matter of fact, they almost say this, we're not even going to negotiate. Well, my friend, guess what? If they have an idea like that, I think that maybe we're at the process where it says there's no sense to continue doing the ridiculous ceasefires for 50 days and no hostages are returned. Israel in the news again. But it doesn't stop there. It comes back to the United States. And so here's quite a clip. President Trump takes questions. I love the fact that he does. As a matter of fact, he doesn't dodge the questions. He hits them head on. He even says things that reporters don't want to hear. Sometimes he says things that I don't want to hear. But here's one that he took in the Oval Office. And he knows that he has a new cabinet member being sworn in. Judge Judy, we call her. And but the question, almost out of sequence, almost out of order with the subject of what's going on. But this little clip is so important that I want to show you what it says. Because he's asked, did he call Netanyahu and ask him to stand down? You see, some of us know that really some of the enemies of Israel were on the ropes. Iran was one. Russia might be on the ropes as well. But Iran was one that was on the ropes. The Houthis were on the ropes. Even the Hamas in Gaza was on the ropes. But all of a sudden, pressure comes from the world, particularly the United Nations, from some of the more liberal mindsets, and say, let's have a ceasefire. Let's not let this thing finish. Well, President Trump takes the question, did you ask Netanyahu and Israel to stand down? Listen to his answer.
Just back on Iran, did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
Mr. President, just last on sanctions.
I did, yeah.
If Senate Republicans want to push
It's not a warning. I said I don't think it's appropriate.
What exactly did you tell him? Did you
I just said I don't think it's appropriate. We're having very good discussions with him, and I said I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors. We can take whatever we want. We can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment. It could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal, and if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
Well, a deal would save lives, or does it actually just kick the can down the road? Let me tell you this. I believe the trip to the Middle East, where President Trump became such good friends with some of the people in Saudi Arabia and other places where they promised trillions of dollars to invest in, I think it may be affecting a little bit of the politics of America. Because you see, I believe that a line has to be drawn in the sand. We've said this before. It seems like we've already told them, you got to release all the hostages. It's not happening. Iran, you got to stop your nuclear reactor in terms of a weapon. It's not happening. And so by saying, yes, we're going to negotiate this, yes, we're going to do this, all it does is give more time to Iran and to the enemies of Israel. Yeah. I hope we call the question sooner rather than later. So I think this is why you're watching the speech that we just saw by Netanyahu. It says it's a war of good and evil. And we can't continue to wait. 40 hostages, dead or alive, we don't know, still there. Can you imagine if you were alive and you went through that torture for 600 days? Can you imagine? The atrocities that they went through is reported both to our president as well as to the world, of vile treatment, sexual harassment, physical sexual harassment, torture in every way. My friend, no wonder Israel's back in the news, because the Bible said in the last days, people would pick on Israel in an unparalleled fashion, and we're watching it take place from everybody, even the friends. Trump is a friend of Israel. America's a friend of Israel, but we still pick on them. Are we just kicking the can down the road? And so he says, okay, hold down, Israel. But where did he get it? Well, here's why I'm a little suspicious. Look at this headline. The leaders of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, they told Trump, hey, oppose the military strike on Iran. So essentially, Trump took the advice of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. Not of his friend Israel, not of his friend Netanyahu. Yeah, I wonder if we're seeing a little twist in the turn of what's taking place in the Middle East. I wonder if we're not building to a place where it might be that the world comes against Israel. Well, that's not the only catastrophe going on in the world. There's another one. And this one is in this story. We'll just mention a headline of it. The U.S. will begin revoking visas of Chinese students indulging in these connections with the Communist Chinese Party and studying in certain fields, selected fields at our universities. Good for them. I'm so thankful for President Trump. See, I'm not afraid to say I agree with you. I'm not afraid to say I disagree with you. But it's high time we did that. I believe that a lot of the problems caused at these universities is because the universities are getting big dollars from foreign entities. Harvard reported getting billions of dollars. Other universities, billions of dollars. Huge, huge funds. We found out now that Harvard's really a business. We found out that they're investing in certain technologies. We're also finding out that some of the people that are involved in these protests in anti-Israel, anti-America, it's because they're really on the side of foreign entities. Yeah, we ought to send them home. We ought to make it so they can enroll in not just Harvard, but any university. Why do we want these people here? If they came here for the destruction of America, let's get rid of them. And so I am all for this. Will it hurt me? Sure. I have some students who've waited all their life. Some of them are in war-torn countries, hoping to get a visa to come and to study, to pursue their education. Otherwise, they'll be inducted into an army that's going to make them fight against their own brothers, their own uncles, maybe their grandparents. I watch as they pull teachers and students, young teachers and students, and induct them in overnight to fight a war that they're totally against. That's a cruel war that's only making wicked dictators more wicked and more rich. But you know what? I'm for this process if it can clean up the whole show. I'd like to request that you pray about this. Pray for the students who are honest, who really want a chance to improve their lot in life, who can make a serious contribution to mankind by getting an education. There's some very talented people that want an education. But we need and we must block those who are anti-America. And so good for him for taking the stand. Another news story that I think is worth mentioning, it's this one. It's the story concerning Elon Musk. Again, I want to mention that I watched a special where he brought, I think it was Jesse Waters, into a roundtable discussion. It started at 10 p.m. and they give a report every week. Talked about what they were doing with Doge and the cleanup area. It was incredible. I didn't agree with the end of the program where Elon Musk said the biggest problem is we've got to create a civilization on the moon or on Mars. No, I think the Bible has a very different end to the humanitarian story than what Elon Musk has in his mind. But let me tell you this. I think we should say thank you to this man at his own personal risk, at his business risk. He was willing to take a stand for the United States and do what's right. Yeah, it's in the news. Well, speaking of news, my plan for the next several weeks, I'm going to be out of the studio. You'll still have a program to watch every day. You'll have special ones on the weekend as well. But we're going to Israel. You might say it's not safe there. I think it might be. We're not going to go to some of the areas where the missiles are hitting. I appreciate your prayers for safety. But let me tell you this, to go to the place of the garden tomb where I think Christ rose from the dead, to go to a place called Golgotha, the place where I think he was crucified. Because you see, the Bible describes the place. We know where it's located outside the city. We know it's by that north gate, the Damascus gate. I just showed you a picture of. Yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to enjoy it. And then because we've got to change our plan a little bit, we're going to go to Masada, of course, but we're also going to be going into Petra, into Jordan. Yeah, right now the group can't land in Jerusalem. So we're going to land in Jordan, in Amman. And we're going to take kind of a special way. We're going to cross, after that, we're going to cross the Allenby Bridge, famous bridge, so small when you see it, you say, is this the famous bridge? Come on, it's not as big as I thought. But we'll have people come in, and I think they're going to really enjoy it. I've been across the bridge a number of times. And then we'll get to tour again through Petra, the hiding place of the Jews in the tribulation, Jerash, an incredible ruin, Mount Nebo, where Moses had a sight into the promised land. My friend, I hope you get some insight from our program on the fact that Christ is coming soon. And the only solution to that is that on the cross, Jesus paid the price of my sin and your sin. And you can enjoy salvation as a gift free from him if you receive him as your personal Savior. God bless you. Thank you for watching.